Microsoft CEO throws some shade at PlayStation's way, and the roadmap for Xbox 2023 regarding first party is kind of revealed. There's a lot here to talk about, so let's get into it. What is going on, everybody? This is Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. Third video this week. Hope everybody's enjoying the content, and if you guys can do me a huge favor, make sure you hit that like button. Please subscribe if you're new, and don't forget to check out the Patreon for the Xbox 2 podcast. Link is in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, by the way. Now, I have two topics I wanted to discuss in this video, and a little bit later on, we're going to be talking about Xbox's 2023 roadmap, the exclusives that you might actually see come out, because the one and only Jeff Grubb talked about this on a recent podcast with Luke and Sipid Ghost of the Xbox Expansion podcast. So we're going to go over what Jeff said, and I'll kind of talk about what I expect to come from first party this year. We have to go right into the main topic, and it's about the Xbox Activision deal, because it's getting even spicier. This is truly the gift that keeps on giving, not only for Xbox fans getting big franchises like Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and all the Blizzard franchises, not to mention Microsoft owning King and having that mobile presence, but it's also let us see kind of behind the curtains and see a little bit of that console war that's going on between PlayStation and Xbox. You know, Jim Ryan versus Phil Spencer. I had a great time dissecting each one of their statements in recent videos, and you would think all this would go away, that everything would be done behind closed doors. But both Xbox and PlayStation are like, no, we're gonna basically have this fight out in public. Just last week, PlayStation said that the deal is awful and that it shouldn't go through because it's horrible for gamers and the future of the industry. Pretty much the worst thing you could possibly say about this. Clearly, Sony is trying to get the deal blocked. They don't want Microsoft to own that franchise. They don't want the extra competition it would bring from Xbox. Well, today we had somebody else throwing their hat into the arena, and that's someone bigger than Phil Spencer. It is the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella. So let's read what Satya had to say, and this comes to us from Bloomberg, and he goes on to say, quote, "For us in gaming, we have one goal: to bring more games to more gamers on all platforms and provide more choice for publishers and developers everywhere. Everything we're doing with our content, our subscription services, our cloud, and community really is about driving that choice and opportunity. We feel very, very confident. Of course, any acquisition of this size will go through scrutiny, but we feel very, very confident that will come out. We're number 4 or number 5, depending how you count in gaming. In fact, the number 1 player in this case, Sony, even in this period, has acquired 3 companies. So if this is about competition, let us have competition." And I don't have the video of this interview, so if you do see it online, make sure you note Satya's kind of sly smile when he says that if this is about competition, let us have competition. So the whole beginning of the statement is clearly PR about how Xbox is doing all these great things and giving choice to developers and all this stuff, right? It's about console, PC, Game Pass, etc., etc., etc. But where it gets there to the end, where they repeat the mantra that, like, listen, we're like number 4, number 5 in terms of gaming revenue. We're just a small-time player. In fact, as I mentioned before, Microsoft has usually always been 3rd place in the console race. Sony's typically always been number 1. In fact, they've usually dominated the space. So, to see Satya come out and be like, listen, we're not number 1, you know, we're number 5, and the number 1 player, Sony, well, they're going out and making acquisitions of their own, bolstering their own studios, getting more exclusive games, even though I guess, is Sony really number 1? Sure, they're the number 1 console platform, although are they really, because Nintendo Switch exists? He says depending how you count, right? Because usually Tencent, if you sort by gaming revenue, is number 1, but I guess Sony would be number 1 when it comes to platform holders. But either way, He's saying, look, Sony's out here making moves, acquiring things. We're trying to do the same. And I love this at the end here. So if this is about competition, let us have competition. Because as I've said before in my videos, I think it's pretty clear as day that Sony doesn't want true competition from Xbox. Sure, they don't mind the competition that Xbox was bringing during the Xbox One gen when they were shooting themselves in the foot and Microsoft was a joke and journalists and fans were making fun of them and they were constantly putting out 60 rated Metacritic games, right? Sony enjoyed that sort of competition from Microsoft. The Xbox that only had 5 internal studios, so they had to go out to third parties and basically have them make their games for them, although a lot of them didn't turn out to be good. Sony really enjoyed that type of competition from Xbox, but they're not enjoying the type of competition that Microsoft will bring when this deal goes through, because as we know, Sony has a complete hard-on for Call of Duty. They don't want to lose that. They also don't like Game Pass. So when you combine Sony's love, fear, respect that they have over Call of Duty and how powerful and big it is, and Game Pass, which is something Sony is not really trying to compete with directly with day one games in the service, Sony truly fears that sort of future. That's why they're out here in the media saying it's bad for gamers and it's bad for the industry, and they want the deal blocked because they don't want to have to deal with the Microsoft or an Xbox that has all these things. But like Satya says, hey, it's about competition, right? If it's about competition, let us compete, because he knows, you all listening here know, that Sony is on the phone telling the Brazilian Commission, the FTC, EU, CMA, whoever will listen, that this is bad for gaming. This is bad for competition because it's bad for them. So he's essentially throwing a little shade Sony's way. And you know what? I am 100% here for the drama. When Xbox says something and PlayStation responds, I love it. Now you have Satya Nadella, the head of Microsoft, basically throwing a shot at PlayStation. What are we going to see next? The CEO of Sony going to say something? Is this about to get even more juicier? I hope so. And I'm cutting myself back in here. I had already finished this video, but I remembered one thing I did want to say about this whole competition angle is be careful what you wish for, people. All you PlayStation fans that were saying and clamoring during the Xbox One generation that you wanted Microsoft to compete, to get better games, etc., etc. You know who you are. You know what you said. Everybody and their mother, from media personalities, influencers to fans, were saying Xbox needs to do better. Xbox needs to compete. And finally, you have Xbox doing that with the full backing of Microsoft, with their oodles and oodles of money. And now it's like, well, we didn't want you to compete like that. It's not fair to PlayStation and everybody else. Who cares what's really fair? You wanted Microsoft to get better and compete. They've done so. They acquired all those studios in 2018. They made the historic purchase of Bethesda, and then they shocked the world by getting Activision Blizzard. You all asked for this, even though probably a lot of you, it's turning out to be a monkey's paw wish, because you didn't want Microsoft to get this big and this powerful. So be careful what you wish for. I got my fingers crossed that Jim Ryan or somebody at Sony opens his mouth about this deal next week. But moving on, we got to talk about 2023 and what does Xbox have up their sleeves for the second half of the year. So the well-known leaker and insider Jeff Grubb has revealed all Xbox exclusives which were originally planned to come in 2023. He got to this information through an internal schedule from 2021 to 2022. All these games were expected to release in 2023 for Xbox only, but what games from this list can we still expect to release next year? Xbox fans have been longing to know what releases will await them in the coming year, but some think it's unrealistic to expect all these games to be released in 2023, while a lot of people in the community are even complaining about showing off games too early. To release so many AAA games in only 1 year seems pretty unrealistic for Microsoft. I think we all understand the drill of impatiently waiting for game release, but isn't anticipation the best joy? Anyway, enough of the talking. Here's the list of all the originally planned exclusives in 2023. And once again, I got to give a shout out to not only Jeff Grubb, who had this information, but gave it to Luke Lore, the insipid ghost, He does an incredible one-man podcast on YouTube and everywhere else called the Xbox Expansion Podcast. Make sure you check it out. So Jeff said these were the titles essentially slated for 2023 all the way back in 2021. Hellblade 2, Perfect Dark, Fable, Contraband, Avowed, Everwild, and new games from In Exile, Compulsion, and Coalition. Now, Jeff Grubb expects Hellblade 2 and Contraband to come out within the second half of next year, but he is not sure about the other titles since they seem like they could easily take another year or two. According to Grubb, with Starfield and Redfall coming out in 2023, Xbox needs to at least release 2 additional games from the list to have an average of 1 game per quarter. So we know what Jeff Grubb thinks. He thinks that Hellblade 2 and Compulsion's game is going to release at the end of the year. And if those 2 do make it, combined with Starfield, Redfall, Minecraft Legends, Aura History Untold, potentially a first-party Diablo 4, as well as Ghostwire Tokyo, not to mention Xbox Global Publishing titles like Project Belfry and all the Game Pass deals they've already made, 2023 could be one of the best years for Xbox ever. But I'm going to give my opinion now about what could potentially release in 2023. And I'm just going to start it off by clearing the board of the titles that I think have 0% chance of releasing next year. So that would remove Perfect Dark. I think that's more of a 2024 title. That would remove Fable. I also think that's either end of 2024 or 2025. I don't think Contraband makes it next year, although I could be wrong about that. And Everwild definitely is not making it next year. That game's been rebooted. That probably is targeting 2025 if I had to guess. And In Exile, I think In Exile is 2024. So that leaves Hellblade 2, that leaves Avowed, that leaves Compulsion's game, and that leaves Coalition's game. I do think there's a very, very high chance Hellblade 2 is the big game for the fall of next year, with also a less likelier chance that Avowed releases in the fall of next year as well. I know there's that thought that, depending on when Starfield releases, you don't really want to release Avowed as well. And while you can make the argument that that doesn't necessarily work in a subscription model, that you just need all these games, it isn't the same thing as it was before where you want to space out releases, there's a part of me that thinks Avowed is an early 2024 title. I want it to show up at the end of 2023, and I do think it has a chance, but for this sake of this video, right now, I'm going to say Avowed is early 2024. Coalition's game's supposed to be smaller, non-Gears focused, but they seem to be helping everybody out with all their games. So could they be ready? I think there's a good chance Coalition's game could hit at the end of the year, depending on how big it is. And the same thing with Compulsions. I think there's also a good chance, even though we haven't seen it yet, even though a lot of you will be like, well, wait a minute. We've seen 2 trailers for Hellblade. We've seen a trailer for Perfect Dark, a trailer for Fable, a trailer for Contraband, a trailer for Avowed, 2 trailers for Everwild. You're going to tell me that Compulsion's game is actually closer to the release than those other ones? And I think there is that possibility, yeah, that Compulsion might be closer. And we don't know. Xbox could have an XO at the end of this year where they could announce Compulsion's game or announce it sometime E3 next year or any of the other events they may have. But I think Jeff is kind of on the mark here. I easily can see Hellblade 2 and Compulsion's game hitting end of next year, with the chance that Avowed and Coalition's game also releases the end of next year, but it really depends on a lot of different factors. So let me know your guesses as to what you want to see or what you think we'll see from Xbox in 2023 in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, check out the Patreon, share this out on social media, and please hit that notification bell. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.